Hello everybody, and it's really windy, so I'm doing my best to try to cover up the microphone, but nevertheless I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Actually, specifically I'm in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, and I'm currently at the Tonopah Municipal Airport, formerly the Tonopah Army Airfield. This was built in completed construction in 1943 and was in operations until 1945, essentially till the end of World War II. The primary focus of this facility was essentially, it was a fighter pilot training school. This was basically Top Gun before Top Gun, and the primary airplane that pilots were training on was the Bell P-39 Airacobras. See, I brought notes. That's just, I came prepared, people. So that lasted for a couple of years. Unfortunately, because of the high altitude, we're at 6,000 feet, and there was quite a few loss of airplanes and crew. So the Army had to make some decisions, and they decided to move the fighter planes back to California, reinvest money to this facility, turned it into a B-29 high altitude bombing training facility, and that's the primary focus until the end of World War II. Then shortly after, this place was decommissioned and everything sold for scrap. Luckily, the runways are still here, which is cool. So now the county, which I don't remember the county name, pretty much maintains this. So currently there's 2 hangars left. There's actually quite a bit of infrastructure. Originally there was 4. One of the hangars, I believe, burned to the ground. All that's left is the chimney and the concrete foundation. When I was here in 2016, there were 3, and when I pulled up yesterday to just, you know, scout the area, make sure that, you know, all the buildings were up, I noticed the hangar that was actually on the airport ramp, the GA ramp at the airport, had collapsed. So, and that was the largest of the 3 that were still standing, and it looks like either wind took it down. I drove past it and I didn't really see any signs of fire. So my gut feeling, because this is a really windy place, as you can probably hear on the microphone, wind probably just brought it down, because these hangars were, you know, in various states of disrepair. There's really no attempts for conservation, unfortunately. So, you know, these are just left to rot, and it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of history here. You know, one of the notable people that trained out here was Chuck Yeager. So he was part of the 357th Fighter group, and after he got his wings down in Arizona, was stationed up here to learn how to be a fighter pilot. So he was one of many notable people, but he's obviously the person that stands out, right? Everybody knows who Chuck Yeager is. So this is a really cool place, and you know, it's kind of my project in life, if you want to call it that, is I want to come by and see and document as many of these places as possible, because they're disappearing at a somewhat alarming rate, especially through wildfires in California. And you know, like what, 6 months ago we lost the American Hotel at Cerro Gordo ghost town outside of Death Valley, and I'm kicking myself like you wouldn't believe, because I never got a chance to go out there. Actually, I've had plenty of chances. I just, for whatever reason, just haven't been out there. And one of the most preserved buildings in that entire park, the hotel, burned to the ground, and that happened like 6 months ago. So that incident pretty much you know, lit the fire that I need to come out and see places like this. And you know, one of the last 6 months obviously has been really tough. Obviously we have the COVID situation, but also weather. Here in the Southwest, we've had 160 plus days of no measurable rain. So clear blue skies for like 160 some days. Yeah, there were a couple of, you know, interesting sunsets peppered, you know, throughout, but it's no monsoon season. We had maybe one thunderstorm kind of roll through the area like 4 months ago, and I remember it because it was like at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got out of bed, grabbed all my camera gear and stuff. I walked out the door, and it was around 5 a.m. and the storm just fizzled out. So it's been challenging, it's been tough. I'm not saying I'm desperate, but you know, it's really tough conditions. So now I'm just having to be creative, and I'm watching where I'm stepping, because it's mating season for tarantulas. So I have to be careful where I step, because you might see a homeboy walking across the ground looking, you know, looking for a good time. So nevertheless, you know, that's kind of been my goal. I've turned that into my goal as of, you know, 4 months ago, is to, you know, can't really take pretty landscape photos. You know, we don't have opportunities for those really awesome cotton candy skies that we all like. So I don't want to just sit at home and stare at my camera gear. So what other opportunities are there available? And one is just nighttime shots, star trails, Milky Way, you know, coming and checking out places like this, because while this one may not be all that interesting on the inside, but if you go to a mining camp or some type of, you know, mine, you're going to see, you know, some really, really cool things that doesn't matter what the sky looks like, because you're shooting inside. So that's what I'm doing, you know, just trying to get that jolt of inspiration, and, you know, just finding ways just to, you know, keep active and practice and all that fun stuff. But that's enough of my spiel. So we have about another 45 minutes until sunsets. So what I'll do is I'm gonna go ahead and get everything set up. I pretty much already had the composition that I'm looking for in mind already, so I'm pretty much ready to go. It's just a matter of, you know, waiting for the sky to go dark. And at 7:30, sunsets at 6:20, but by 7:30 it's pitch black. So as I was getting set up, I heard some airplanes fly over, and unfortunately I left my 200 to 500 millimeter at home, because I'm not doing any wildlife, and I really wasn't expecting to see any or hear any airplanes fly over. But I couldn't see them, but they definitely sounded like F-22s. F-22s, when they have a really distinct howl, intake noise. So as the pilots are modulating the throttles, you know, it's the intakes make a howling sound, kind of like blowing air over a jug. And F-22s sound different, F-18s sound different, F-35s, they all have a unique sound because of the intake shape. So that was kind of cool, but also kind of creepy. So here, Nevada Test Site is one of the few places over land where you will hear a sonic boom. So that occurred one time, and when I was out in Rachel, Nevada, and not gonna lie, that it's loud because they're flying at, you know, 25,000 feet, and then you hear a sonic boom and it completely reverberates through the entire valley that you're in, and it hurts. But nevertheless, that was really cool. So hopefully, you know, we'll see or hear some more. I'd rather hear an F-22 than a UFO, to be honest. So, but anyways, so why no Milky Way? Well, as I spin around and make myself dizzy, I was thinking long and hard about this inside of the car while driving up here, and I decided against it because for the most part, Milky Way photos, the Milky Way is primarily always the subject of the photo, right? You're shooting the Milky Way. And if you're somewhere, yeah, there might be cool geologic feature or something, and that's just extra stuff to make a pretty composition. But the Milky Way is always the star, no pun intended. And here, for this case, I want the hangar to be the focus of the photo. So star trails, to me, I use star trails as just a pretty backdrop to whatever I'm shooting in the foreground, right? So to me, star trails are the same as cotton candy skies and, you know, lightning and all that fun stuff. So the star trails would just be a cool thing in the background, but the building is the focus. So that's why tonight I might do a Milky Way shot just for fun, but star trails is going to be the focus. So all right, I'm over here getting set up, so let me go ahead and walk over and show you what I'm doing. All right, so we're starting to it's actually past sunset and just waiting for it to get dark. So let's go ahead and talk about the gear and how I have this set up. So one, mainly because I'm just close to it, is the lighting. I'm using an Aperture MC, just a little pocket RGB light on a tripod. For low level lighting, you really don't need a lot of light. You want your light to basically match starlight. So I shoot at, or excuse me, the light is at about 5% intensity and at 5600K, which is about daylight. The reason for that is, again, we're at an airport, which is right behind me, and there's the airport beacon, and it flashes green and white, and the light is hitting this building. So last night when I was doing my test shots, I got this really weird lighting on the building that I did not like. So I went ahead and busted out the aperture, lit up the building. The light from the aperture was brighter than the light coming from the airport, so everything was nice. So you really don't need too much. And those apertures are great. I really need to pick up more of them, because I really wish that I can, you know, put a light inside that building, so that way I can have, you know, some light shining out. But, you know, abandoned building at nighttime, probably too chicken for that. So maybe that's just not a good idea. So all right, let's talk about gear. Tripod, the sturdiest tripod that I have, Really Right Stuff TVC 34L, BH55 ball head, and a TA03 leveling base. See, I can't believe I actually remembered all that, but for some reason I can't remember my own birthday. But anyways, so this is the kind of composition that I'm working with. If you notice, you and I'm shooting up. So Nikon D810, 24-70 VR, and of course a remote. I'm shooting up for a couple of reasons. One, this is a really tall building. Once you factor in that round head frame, it's roughly about 3 stories tall, and I don't have a ladder or a scissor lift or anything to raise myself up to shoot towards the midline. So I'm giving myself plenty of sky, so that way in Photoshop I can fix the vertical perspective. So instead of the building leaning back, I can straighten it out so the walls look straight. And also I want to get as much of the sky as possible because, you know, star trails. So that's really about it. Just a really simple thing. So how I'm going to shoot it is, I know there's been some arguments on the internet. I know, arguments on the internet? No way. That never happens. When I first started astrophotography, or nighttime shooting, whatever you want to call this, the technique that I've read and have people taught me is multiple exposures, f2.8, or the fastest your lens will go. High ISO, you know, 1600, 3200, all the way up to like 6400. Shoot multiple exposure, like 15 seconds each, and then you stack them in whatever software that you want to stack them in. That is great, and it works for some people, works for some cameras. Sure, great, no problem. My camera, however, is bought in 2014, so it's what, seven years old, and I've noticed the older the camera gets, the noisier it's like becoming. You know, shooting at even like 800, it's like, I don't recall that camera being as noisy at 800 as it was when I first bought it. But nevertheless, that's the camera I have, and that's a camera I'm going with. I've shot a couple of dark frames, ISO 1600, 15 seconds, f2.8 with the lens cap on. Viewed the photos in Photoshop, Lightroom, and you can definitely tell a lot of banding, a lot of noise, and a lot of amp glow. So at the very bottom of the image, it's magenta, you know, really bad magenta, and some green splotches throughout the shot. And once I took a light frame and I matched it up with the dark frame, you can actually then see the banding, the magenta and the green in the you know, the light frame. It's there. So then when you have 20, 25, 30 light frames and they all have it, then you stack them. Well, guess what? Now you just magnified those defects, and you can't get them out. They're not coming out. I'm sure there's probably some, you know, Photoshop gurus out there who deal with that all the time, and for them it's no problem. But for me, it's not worth the time and effort. So my preferred way of shooting is long exposures. So instead of a bunch of short ones, I'll do f2.8, ISO 800, so much lower ISO, and I'll do a 4-minute exposure. So what I've found is the banding is gone, so the noise has been reduced dramatically, so it's a lot cleaner image, and the amp glow is virtually gone. So just leaving the lens open for as long as possible. 4 minutes for me is about the limit, because if I do 8 minutes, 6 minutes, then I have to deal with a lot of hot pixels, and those can be a pain to deal with, because I already have plenty of dust on my sensor, so don't want to deal with, you know, cleaning up more stuff. So that's pretty much my process, and I've had pretty good success where, you know, I've had print quality stuff by going to that method. Obviously, you know, I do what's well for my equipment, what you have, you know, do what's good for what you have. On the last note, well, how do I handle Milky Way? Because a 4-minute exposure, you know, that Milky Way is moving. So how do I handle that? Well, I have a star tracker. So I have an Ioptron SkyGuider Pro. That's a mouthful. And that's where I use that to, you know, track the Milky Way. When I shoot Milky Way, I'm always using my, I wouldn't say always, but most of the time I'm using my 14 and 24 millimeter. And what's nice about when you shoot ultra wide, the star tracker, all you have to do is make sure it's pointed to due north, not magnetic north, but true north. Once you have it aimed towards Polaris, you're good to go. So no polar aligned at anything. If you're then, you know, if you're going to be shooting with a proper telescope or a proper lens for some wide field photography, then you're going to have to polar align. And you know, I've done it. It's not a big deal, but anything that I can do to limit the workflow in the field is okay with me. So well, that's really about it. So as you can see, it's starting to get dark. We have another about another hour before it's completely pitch black. So I'm probably gonna have to stop filming for now. I think I've been rambling for way too long, but you know, it is what it is. So hopefully you got some good information out of this. While I'm here waiting, I'm gonna think of some fancy piano music to play while I show you my picture, if it turns out. If it doesn't, then I will find an older picture to use in its place, because I'm Hollywood now and I have no problem lying to you. So, but in all seriousness, you know, I was having a very much a mental conversation, because it's been tough. You know, not like I said before, it's been a tough 6 months, and I'm now starting to become okay with not every photo I take has to be a Pulitzer Prize Nat Geo cover shot. Frankly, most of my pictures are nowhere near that category anyways, but I'm content with just taking an okay photo. You know, sometimes things just don't work out despite all the planning you do, all the work, and you know, all the stuff that goes into making a photograph. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you know what, that's okay. So I'm okay with it. So whatever photo I'm going to capture tonight, I'm going to go ahead and post it after I'm done rambling and put it up against some fancy piano music, because you got to have piano music on a photography channel for some reason. But anyways, I think that's the end of the video. So I'm still trying to figure out a theme song, and I don't really know. I don't really know what I'm gonna do. So if anybody has any suggestions, you know, let me know. Oh, this doesn't make any noise. I forgot about that. All right, have a good one.